1960 brought with it another pastoral change. Brother Stephen Fawcett was called to pastor in 1961, and he left in October 1962. Brother Fawcett was followed by S.S. Walker, who pastored from November 1962 until 1965. He was followed by Thomas Duncan from January 1966 until May of 1968. It was under Brother Duncan that the church added 10 classrooms, fellowship hall, kitchen, and a nursery in 1967. Today, this fellowship hall's been remodeled. Some of those classrooms have been taken out, as well as the nursery. Brother Don Ritchie bridged the decades as he was called as pastor in September 1968, and he stayed until November 1971. Following Brother Ritchie was Eddie James. Brother James served from May 1972 until February 1975. Brother David Wagner moved on to the church field in April 1975, and he stayed until April of 1978. Following Brother Wagner was Brother Robert Calhoun. He came to Union Hill in October of 1978 and left in September 1980 to become a foreign missionary. He was followed by Brother Carl Nelson in October of 1980. Brother Nelson led the church to a groundbreaking service for a third auditorium on January 2nd, 1983. It was dedicated to the Lord for worship on October 30th, 1983. In a moment you'll see how beautiful this auditorium is. And it's a joy to worship and to preach God's Word in this place. Brother Nelson retired in March 1985 and was followed by Brother Jack Sappenfield, who came into the field in July of 1985. The church was continuing to grow and be blessed by God, and Brother Jack led the church to build an education wing. Ground was broke on April 24th, 1988. This education wing added 10 classrooms, and these were used for the first time on Sunday, October 2nd, 1988. In 1989, the church called Phil Tallman as a full-time minister of youth and music. He remained until 1992, when he was called to Westport Baptist Church in Cleveland, Oklahoma. Brother Jack pastored Union Hill until the Union Baptist Association in Norman, Oklahoma, called him to be an associate director and church planter in 1989. I arrived on the field of Union Hill on May 1st, 1990. I've been pastor for 7.5 years. Since I've come to Union Hill, we've accomplished many maintenance projects around the church. We've almost totally reduced our building debt, and we purchased in the spring of 1997 2 additional acres of land next to our building. Since I've been at Union Hill, we've had 2 full-time ministers, Brother Phil Tallman, who was here when I arrived, and Brother Henry Burns. Brother Henry served for a year and then left and returned to school. 2 part-time ministers to youth have also served under me, Brother Stephen Maddenley and Brother John Elliff. We've had only 1 other part-time minister of music since I've been here, and that's Brother Ken Street. Union Hill has been served by 1 part-time custodian since my entire ministry, Mrs. Fuzz Maynard. I've been assisted by Mrs. Sharon Tallman, Mrs. Evelyn Seaton, Mrs. Kathy Brooks, and now Mrs. Mary Reinhardt as secretary. And all of this history in these buildings are important, but we have other events that are important as well. We have been on mission trips across our country. We've been to Arizona, New Mexico, South Dakota, and even to the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. We've helped support a home mission project in Pecan Valley in McLeod, Oklahoma. Our mission groups continue to help as needs come. We help with Delta Community Action and other needs in our community. We worship with our choir and other special music events. We use cantatas. We use other musicians to try to reach our part of the world with the gospel. We involve our youth in banquets, Falls Creek, retreats, and as you'll see, with many other important events in the life of our church. So as Paul Harvey says, you know the rest of the story. In fact, you're helping to write that story. What will the story say? Remember, it's his story, so let's tell it so he is glorified.
And the businessmen in Purcell, some of them gave pretty liberally, we thought at that time, you know, and we got started that way, but we liked $2,000 having enough money. So me and Curtis and Ed Maynard is the main character in this starting it. So we went to the bank with Ed to borrow some money. And he asked Mr. Wells, he told Mr. Wells he wanted to borrow $2,000 to build a church. And Mr. Wells said, Ed, how you going to pay it back? And he said, I don't know. We just come to borrow it today. And he just reached up there in that little old desk to his and got out that little old book of notes, you know, just about as big as a check. Wrote it out. Ed signed it, me and Curtis signed right under his name. We didn't have anything. But Brother L.M. Norwood come down. He surrendered to preach in the Newcastle. He's superintendent of schools at Newcastle, and they sent him down to Goins to preach, you know, and he's the one that, but Young was preaching at Goins before Brother Norwood, you know, and he was instrumental in it, but I don't think he ever had a part in the church, but
no, he didn't.
Kenneth Wolf did after Brother Norwood. Brother Norwood, and when they started to build, the day they were going to start, he came down that morning from Newcastle and dedicated the first block that was laid in the building. He prayed over that.
Some been going to Woody Chapel, and they didn't, well, and at Goins, none of us had a whole lot in our congregation, so we decided that met up, I guess we met up at Goins first, and decided that we'd all go together, and we selected this place and got the land from leased it from Mr. Crawford, and then we built this church, this first one. And we were, Brother Hardy from Purcell Church helped us to, when we had the mission. It was a mission for 2 years. And then after that 2 years, well, we became a church.
What was the first edition that you built?
Where our classrooms are now.
Oh, yeah.
See, we just built onto the side of it. And then that was classrooms. And then when we built the new, that's when we built the offices and what have you.
Yeah.
And that was just put those partitions, made a hall down between there, you know.
So it was hooked together, the first part and
The second part.
Office is right now was hooked together with that hall whenever it was built?
Well, now where the two, you know, there's our classes over here, and then there's hall, and that was all one big building.
Oh, it was?
Yeah. That was the second building we built.
Yeah.
Now, the first building was just made out of cement blocks, like the picture shows.
Yeah. But so those two weren't joined together? Or
Yeah, they were joined together. Yeah. We had a hall, you know, just like we have now.
Yeah.
And Buster was the first deacon we had, and the only deacon for a long time.
Oh, yeah.
And then Curtis and B.H. became ordained as deacons.